So your customer walks into the room, or more realistically, they ping you on Slack and they say, we just need a quick proof of concept. Nothing fancy, to show us that it works. Cool, you've seen this before. You're going to do some sketches, you'll do a weekend warrior special, and then maybe 3 sentences later, it's, oh, and this also needs to handle 10,000 concurrent users, integrate with Salesforce, pass the security review, and then we want to demo it to the board next Thursday. Congratulations, you've just been handed a POMV, or a POMVP. Today, I want to talk to you about something I'm starting to see a lot in my own work, in the industry, and in basically every conversation about building AI tools right now. The lines between a proof of concept and a minimal viable product, well, they're gone. They're completely blurred. And nobody's really talking about what this means for how we actually architect and build things. So I'm going to coin a term. POMVP, a proof of minimal viable product, POC plus MVP equals, well, a mess. But a mess we need to talk about. I'm Dan Murphy, this is TalkTechToMe. Let's get into it. So let's go back to how things used to work, because there used to be a clear line here. A proof of concept was a disposable experiment, the architectural equivalent of a napkin sketch. You drew it, you proved the idea wasn't insane, and you threw the napkin away. Nobody ever expected the napkin to hold water. It answered the one question, can this even work? An MVP, or minimal viable product, is different. Think of it as the first real swing at building something. Stripped down, sure. Features missing, absolutely. But it was architected to be lived in. It had foundation, load-bearing walls, a front door that actually locked. It answered the different question, will this actually be used? POC is a napkin sketch, and MVP is a tiny house. Different animals, different budgets, different conversations entirely. The distinction is dead, and honestly, AI killed it at the scene. Here's what's actually happening right now, especially in AI and in agentic software. Someone wants you to prove that an AI agent can actually automatically triage customer support tickets, route them to the right place, to the right team, draft the initial responses, classic POC territory. Just show me that it works with our data. But think about that for a second. Works with our data, what does that actually mean? That means connecting the system to their actual systems and to their actual data, their actual customer data, their actual security requirements, their actual uptimes, and their expectations. You can't demo a support triage agent with fake tickets and a mock API and expect anyone to be convinced. The proof is the product. The demonstration is the deployment. And this is like saying, just build me a quick prototype car so I can see if the engine concept works. But I need you to test drive it on the M1. You're no longer building a napkin sketch. You're not building a tiny house either. You're building a tiny house that needs to survive a storm and pass building inspection. But you only have the budget and the timeline for a napkin sketch. That's a POMVP. Of course, traditional software had a natural firewall between POC and MVP. You could fake a database, you could mock up an API, you could hardcode responses, and you could wave your hands during demos. The illusion was cheap, but software companies became increasingly convincing at this and simulating what it does. AI doesn't work like that, especially agentic AI. An AI agent's entire value proposition is that it behaves intelligently in real conditions, and you can't mock intelligence. You can't hard code emergent behavior. A natural language model talking to a fake database in a sandbox proves absolutely nothing to a stakeholder who wants to know if it won't hallucinate when Karen from accounts submits a ticket in all caps with 3 typos and a passive aggressive tone. Apologies to all the Karens out there. The proof is in the production pudding. Always. So the POC by necessity starts looking like an MVP straight away. It has to handle real edge cases. It has to not embarrass anybody in front of the boardroom, and suddenly your quick 2-week spike needs real authentication, actual error handling, and not just exam pass prayer stuff. It's going to need logging and observability, because if it does break, people are going to ask why. It's going to need data privacy and compliance, and it's going to need some kind of scalability, because if the demo goes well, they'll want to just expand it by Friday and not rebuild it from scratch. You're no longer building throwaway anymore, but you're also not being paid to keep it either. Which leads on to the next problem. This is where it gets genuinely painful. The POMVP creates an impossible architectural tension and plays out in one of 2 distinct directions. If you build it like a true POC, fast, dirty, disposable, one of 2 things happens. Number one, it works and they want to keep it. Now you're maintaining a house of cards in production. You'll spend the next 6 months rebuilding the plane while it's still flying, which everyone pretends is absolutely normal and nobody thinks is absolutely insane. Number two, it works and they want to just add a few more things. This is the software equivalent of surgery that went great. Now can you just swap out the entire skeleton? Every new feature is another floor on a building with absolutely no foundations in it. If you build it like a true MVP, properly architected, well structured, built to last, again, one of two things happens. Number one, it takes too long and they lose patience. The window closes, the budget moves on, and the champion gets reassigned to go and work on something else. You built a beautiful house that nobody will ever move into. Or number two, the concept doesn't validate and you're overinvested. You spent 3 months engineering a beautiful, scalable, well-tested system that proved the idea was bad. Congratulations on your pristine, useless code base. The POMVP lives in no man's land between these different outcomes, and there's no clean rail playbook for it right now. Now, I want to touch on disposable software, because here's the thing that nobody in enterprise software wants to say out loud. A lot of software doesn't need to live very long anymore. We spent decades building software like we're constructing a cathedral. A multi-year roadmap, elaborate architecture diagrams, migration plans for migration plans, testing every individual line of code like it needs to survive for the next decade. But the reality of AI tooling right now is that the landscape shifts so fast that the thing you need to build today might be obsolete in a month's time, sometimes even just weeks. The agentic workflows that you spent 4 months perfecting a new model release just might make it impossible in 4 lines of code. The custom RAG pipeline that you have hand-tuned, well, a new framework might emerge tomorrow that just commoditizes it. Software is becoming more like a campfire than a cathedral. You build it, it serves its purpose, it burns down, and you build a new one somewhere else. And honestly, that's not always a bad thing, but it changes fundamentally how you should think about building. Now, this topic alone deserves an entire video by itself, and I will come back to it another time, but I wanted to include it right now because it is quite relevant. Back to the main story. So how do you actually build a POMVP? I don't have a perfect answer, and anyone who does is trying to sell you something. But here is what I've learned living in this kind of awkward middle ground that we appear to be in. Number one, invest in the seams and not in the walls. Build cheap, replaceable components connected by well-designed interfaces. The individual pieces can be held together by bubblegum and hope, but the way they connect should be clean. What this means is if you need to rip them out and replace a component, you won't be doing surgery with a scalpel, not a chainsaw. Think of Lego, not concrete. Each brick can be cheap and simple, but the connection system is standardized and reliable. Number two, make the throwaway parts obviously throwaway. The worst POMVP sin is building something disposable that looks permanent. Label your hacks, comment your shortcuts, create a tech debt document that is brutally honest about what you're doing and what you're building. Future you needs to know which of the walls are load bearing and which of the walls are made of cardboard and painted over like brick. Number three, protect the data layer like it's the only thing that actually matters, because realistically, it is the only thing that actually matters. Components come and go, frameworks rise and fall, modules get replaced all the time, but data is persistent and it compounds. If there's one place to invest properly in a POMVP, it's how you should store, structure, and protect your data. Get this wrong, nothing else matters. Number four, build for deletion, not for extension. Traditional architecture optimizes for adding features. POMVP architecture should optimize for ripping things out. Every component should be removable without bringing down the entire house, no longer building monoliths or house of cards. Totally different design philosophy, and the most engineers aren't trained for it. And number 5, and this is the big one, be honest about what you're building. The biggest POMVP disaster I've seen come from a mismatch in expectation. The builder thinks that they're making a POC. The stakeholders think or assume they're getting an MVP, and nobody says it out loud until things go wrong or until the first, release. Have the uncomfortable conversations up front. This will be a real enough to prove the concept with real users and real data, but it is not production. Here's what it would take to make production software is the conversation you need to have at this stage. Here's what we're deliberately not doing, and here's why. And by the way, framing it in this way actually helps you ask for the budget as well. It becomes a two-phase thing, POC to MVP. Funds ring-fenced, stage gates applied. It shows promise and invest in it properly. If you don't, you haven't burnt a fortune then. The POMVP isn't going away. If anything, it's becoming the default and far more prevalent. AI tools are accelerating how fast we can build while simultaneously raising the bar for what built actually means. A single developer with the right tools can build in a few weeks what would have taken an entire team a quarter to build. But expectations have also scaled to match. The speed created capacity and the market immediately consumed it. The napkin sketch now needs to hold water. This also means that a prototype car needs to survive the joys of the M1. It means the campfire needs to heat the entire cathedral. The gap between proving it works and making it works has absolutely collapsed. And if you're building software in 2025, especially in the AI software industry, you're probably already building POMVPs, whether it's named that or not. At least we can do is be honest about it. If you found yourself trapped in POMVP purgatory, building something that's too real to be a prototype and too rough to be a product, you're not alone. The whole industry is here. You just haven't admitted it yet, or you haven't put a name to it yet. So if this has resonated with you, let me know in the comments. Like, subscribe, share, all that kind of thing. And if POMVP becomes an industry recognized term, you heard it here first. I've been Dan Murphy. This is TalkTechToMe. Bye-bye.